Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today I want to use the Admiral Hipper as a testing bed for my suggestion how to improve naval forces in one specific part alone, and this is how to kill an enemy ship, specifically about the magazine explosions. And the first scene, the very first 3 minutes, are more or less uncut scenes from the start to basically the finish of a certain gameplay. So I just spawned, I'm launching my torpedoes in a certain pattern, and I picked my first target, which just happened to be a Brooklyn. Shots are out and also shots are coming in. I take a little bit of damage and I just inflict damage on other ships, but I want to kite away, I want to turn away, I want to angle my armor, I want to improve the amount of damage that I can do as well as my survivability. But every good thing must come to an end sooner than later. Incoming shells, and yeah, I just got deleted by Akirov. Now I take here the Brooklyn with me, which is always nice, and I think to myself, I cannot let it go like this, so I pick here a backup and I want to spawn in and I want to just clarify this argumentation here with that Kirov. So I pick here a cruiser that looks like a Kirov, 2 turrets in the front, one in the back. Guns are very close together. That can only be a Kirov to my understanding. I'm not quite for sure if that guy is it, up until a point that I hopefully can kill him and I get the kill messages. Again, I try the very same thing again, and in fact I get a turret hit, and that is counted as a kill, eye for an eye, but it was actually a magazine explosion. So if I can use a backup that I got either by, investing in backups with war bonds or buying them with golden eagles or just playing the ship very often, then you get also with the lottery backups if you play a certain vehicle specifically very often. I just saw him respawning and immediately I recognize the threat. I need to kill this guy ASAP. Not just only can I do it immediately again, but he also can shoot me. I landed some good hits on him, but sadly enough, not good enough. But his shots in the air delete me because he just had a bit better RNG and also granted a bit better aim. While this situation was hilarious and it was stupid and it made me laugh, I just simply can't get over the fact that this is a thing in War Thunder. And you have to see, the grind is long. The stock grind is also long and painful. The income, even if you have a good battle, even if you have premium account and big boosters, is small. There are so many bots. The battle take a while. Very often there is nothing to do. And then on top of all those frustrating aspects, which are purely down to the map design and also the objectives and many other things surrounding the gameplay at cruiser level, I think on top of this, that you add this one-shot mechanic is just frustrating. It's outrageous, it's punishing, and especially it punishes ship that have no other choice, that have probably not such a good design, that had one in one way or another good design in real life and they had their points, but in War Thunder they get punished for it. On top of this, on many ships that have great armor, for example the Hipper, you can take a lot of damage from high explosive shells, from armor piercing. You have the turtleback armor scheme, you have the distributed armor scheme, your barbettes and your turret faces are armored with thick plating. But it all doesn't matter because one single shell to your magazine and it's all gone. Gaijin tried to recently address this by reducing the chance that a magazine explodes when getting hit by a shell that is not an 8-inch shell. But it doesn't really work in my experience, or I just don't look appropriately at the scenes. But very often I get hit by a single shell in the magazine and that's it. So it is very frustrating. A lot of people say that this is not fun. Yes, I know fun is subjective, and objectively this is a little bit realistic, right? But very often realism gets sacrificed for playability in video games, even though those games try to be some sort of realistic simulators, whatever. And so Gaijin really tries to, come up with the argument that this is more or less realistic. The next thing is, I say, yes, it is realistic, and when it works, it's nice and glorious when you kill all the enemies that there are. But at the same time, I have to say that this is, in general, in the summary of it all, not very fun. And my proposition shouldn't really take away this opportunity, rather modify it to what we have a little bit with tanks. You see, with tanks, it matters if you hit the ammunition or not. You also can burn down an enemy tank, or you can kill all the crew except one. Then you also can kill the tank, right? So with that in mind, we also have to look at aircraft. And again, another factor of playability is, for example, that planes on the runway don't crash into each other at the beginning of a game. They can even run through themselves. And this is an accepted thing for playability, as well as something called the critical hit. And I wanna see a magazine explosion changed to critical hits. If you hit an enemy ship with a big shell, something from the Kirov upwards in the current situation of the game, and the shell actually explodes inside of the magazine of the enemy ship, which is completely full, then there is a very high chance that it counts the ship as being completely killed, right? Completely destroyed. And I would be okay with this. However, if you also reduce the amount of shells that there are in the magazine, or the magazine in general has less than 25% of the overall maximum shell capacity of the ship, then you should go into this blowout scenario. If you think that this is a new idea, it actually isn't. In fact, this is what we already had in the game with destroyers. Now, let me go into this, because I think that this is worth talking about. And it was, for me personally, great to see that this is something that Gaijin considers back in the days when we saw destroyers only, when cruisers weren't a thing. And that is that you hit the magazine of a destroyer, let's say the rear magazine, and it exploded. So the enemy destroyer was on fire, it took on water, and the guns were destroyed, as well as that portion of the ship, right? But if he recovered his ship from flooding and fire, then he still could fight on with the front guns, repair the rear guns, and eventually even get back ammunition in a capture zone, right? So there was a way to play around it if the damage that the ship has received up until this point was not too excessive. And so I think that I want to check, or that I think it's a good thing if Gaijin at least tries this in a separate game mode, on a test server, or for only one patch just before the really big ships come around. Now, again, if the overall shell capacity in the magazine per magazine is reduced to, say, let's say half the amount of the maximum capacity, then we should go into the magazine blowout scenario, or we also should go into the blowout scenario if the single magazine that got hit contains less than 10-15% of the overall ship's capacity, or we go via a certain amount of mass for the propellant charges in ratio to the ship's overall displacement. Many things are thinkable, and it would be great, because you just spawn, you get shot by a hipper right from the start, and then you get blown up, and there is just nothing that you can do. I think that this is deeply frustrating. I want to see more of those fights where you whittle an enemy down, where you aim specifically for certain crew compartments, more like with destroyers if you don't aim for the magazines for whatever reason, right? So this is what I want to happen. And the benefit would be the following: you can plan. Every ship has its own ammunition layout setting, and this brings much more thinking to the process, and not just, blatant kills like this. That was probably one of the first hits that he received and he blew up. Or this guy, he just spawned, and that is one of the first salvos that I fire at him. I took precise aim, and the shells land, and those shells weren't dots. So I killed him. This was one of the very first hits that he actually received. His crew was still at 80%, and I have now a target-rich environment. Obviously, I want to focus those who are shooting at me, or where I think that they are in the long term the greatest threat to the rest of my team. And with the Hipper, oh look who just respawned, another Hipper. It would be a shame if I would reload and fire at him again. With the adjustment of the range and the firing angle, I assume that his speed is roughly the same as mine. We are on a parallel course, and salvo is out. I aimed for his front magazines, 3 seconds till impact, and at least one shell found its mark. Can you imagine the fun that this guy had? Now, let's just talk about the very scenario for this guy. After he got killed, he realizes that the zone is hot, so he uses his backup. But before he clicks into battle, he actually reduces the overall ammunition capacity to a half. So the hit that I would have scored on his front magazine still would have been critical, because he would have taken an enormous amount of crew loss. The front turrets would have been down, the magazine would have been blown up, but he only receives fire, flooding, and crew loss. He can recover from this, and he also can continue fighting with the rear turrets. And if he picks me, I either have to score another critical hit on the rear magazine, or just whittle down the rest of the crew by firing high explosive at him, knocking out the machinery repeatedly with armor-piercing shells. So this is a bit more durability for such large ships. And so you would also learn from your mistakes. You can improve on your playstyle, and it's not really punishing that hard. I think that how those modular damage systems work in War Thunder is one of the game's greatest strength, but it's also frustrating. I understand it for planes, I understand it for tanks, but for ships this feels awkward. Yes, I know, there was the Battle of Jutland, where the German battle fleet destroyed several British battle cruisers because they had ammunition stockpiled in their turrets. There was also the famous Battle of the Denmark Strait, where Bismarck actually blew up Hood with one hit to, assumingly this is correct, the rear magazine. And the next thing is that other ships have also received magazine hits and blew up, right? But a lot of things, as I said in the beginning, were sacrificed for playability. And I think that this is one of those factors where playability is definitely one of the weaknesses of naval forces, especially at the cruiser level. And I think that Gaijin can change this. So Gaijin, please consider this mechanic to be tested, either on a dev server or on a separate server, or I don't know, in a certain event, just to see how it looks differently. I think there is a point, and this will not just improve the cruiser gameplay, but also the future battleship gameplay, the battle cruiser gameplay. And it is down to the player if he wanna go full risk to have enough ammunition for the rest of the battle, or if he wanna be a bit more safe and a bit more tanky. And we already have this with tanks, that it makes actually a difference if you take full ammunition or if you just use the ready rag, and then you have to play around the capture zone. So I think that there are many possibilities, and at the end of the day, I'm only left with asking you guys what you guys think about this idea of mine. this is a suggestion of mine. This is what I think has positive impact on the gameplay if tested and if implemented into the gameplay. And I think that, yeah, we have to try it out if this is then as good as I think, because a great many things are very great in theory. You can think of all the good and bad aspects, but at the end of the day you have to test it. And Gaijin already have reworked the magazines in terms of that they have more hit points, and I think there can be further improvements made on this subject, on this matter. So yeah, let me know in the comment section. Anyways, that's finally it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like with it, subscribe if you want to see more, and we will see each other on the battlefields, in the skies, and on the waves of War Thunder.